Welcome back to another episode of Anygames Talent Talk, a show where I sit down and talk to various people from the anime and video games industry to learn a bit more about them, the projects they've been involved with, and the characters they've brought to life. I'm your host Joel, and today I'm talking with Dan Green, who's known for voicing both Yugi and Pharoah Yugi in Yu-Gi-Oh!, playing Mewtwo and Entei in the Pokemon films, Knuckles the Echidna in Sonic X, and a ton of other voices throughout the years. We talked about how he came up with the voices for Yugi's two personas, what it was like coming back to voice him for the Dark Side of Dimensions movie after so many years, and why we thought the Yu-Gi-Oh! Anime was a success, and it wasn't just a series made at the time to push a product like so many other shows. And then we went into detail about his new project, Crossing the G.O.D.S. If you haven't heard about it already, it's an awesome project, and Dan and I go into detail throughout the episode talking about how it came to be and his plans for the series, and it's something you should be pretty excited for. Now, Yu-Gi-Oh! Was one of my favourite series growing up, and it was great to talk to Dan and learn more about the character and about himself and his projects. I had a great time conducting this interview, and I hope you guys enjoy it too. This episode was filmed live on location at Supanova 2019, so I do apologise for the background noise. But let's not waste any more time, let's jump into the episode.
I didn't realise until many years later that you actually voiced both Yami and Ricky.
Right.
I was convinced for years that was two guys.
Is that right?
So, what was it like? How did it? Was it more the direction from Eric that allowed you to find the places for those voices? Because he mentioned yesterday that his Kaiba is kind of mainly his register, but he had to find the attitude of Kaiba.
Right.
How did you figure both of the Yugis aren't your regular register? It's kind of a voice you put on for both of them.
Sure.
How did you come to find those places?
Right. So that's largely creative decisions that are determined by the producers. And finding what they want is a process of discovery for them too. And you might have an idea and you express that to the person who's doing the role, and then they do their version of what they think you mean, right? So there's some trial and error or discovery process involved with that. And obviously the Pharaoh is treated vocally very differently in the original series from Japan. And I completely understand when somebody's watching the show, it's like, okay, says Yu-Gi-Oh, grows about 2 inches, and now he talks like a man. It's a little strange, right? But obviously, I think what people are responding to is that, well, that deeper voice creates more of a father-son relationship. Maybe he sounds older because he's an ancient spirit. That sense of more refined diction suggests reality, which we would associate with a pharaoh. So for those reasons, those choices I think connect. But yeah, it's a discovery process, and also Yugi being a boy. Well, obviously, I don't have a high voice, but and finding out what sounded high enough but not too high and fake and stupid. That's a fine line. And I haven't watched through the whole series, but there definitely were seasons where whoever was directing me was encouraging me to raise up the pitch, and I'm like, this is what we did before, but I'm just here to do what I'm told. Yep. So those kinds of things affect what the audience is actually being provided. But back to I think the sense of your original question is that initial process. It's mainly controlled by the producers, and Eric has input too, but he's serving their vision as well. Yeah. So does that cover what you meant?
So when you first got the sides for the character, were you a bit freaked out once you realised it's a guy addicted to playing a card game who has a split personality who one thinks is a pharaoh?
You think that would freak me out, but I have a cousin who's just like that. No. When you're auditioning for anything as an actor, you're putting yourself in a better position if you just say yes to what you're being given, and not why the hell would they do that, Right. And even more generally, I don't judge the stuff that the stories that I perform, right? My job is to perform them as best I can, right?
Yes.
I mean, that's the ethical ideal, right? Of course you have your own opinion, right? But a professional needs to put that aside and do their job.
That's right.
Or at least that's what I was taught. Yeah.
Did you think when you first started the series that it would be still iconic and so touching to so many
No.
people, say, 15 years later?
No. And in the context of how this occurs in the American entertainment culture at the time, there was Pokemon, you might have heard of. And, right. And then this thing, Yu-Gi-Oh! Comes along, which seemed to be sort of like, okay, now the original Pokemon fans are aging up and they need a series similar, but is a little darker because they're getting a little bit more complex. And so, is it really possible to, if you will, catch lightning in a bottle twice, So there was a lot of skepticism as to, whether or not that would catch. But also, as any actor would tell you, you have a job, you just do it, and you never know what's going to happen. So no anticipation that it would have been popular when it initially was premiering in the United States, and by multitudes greater, certainly no anticipation that 15 years later, since it's been off air, that anybody would care about it.
That's right.
You
what
know?
was it like coming back to those characters for the Dark Side of Dimensions?
Like-
Eric touched on yesterday.
Yeah.
It was good to be able to come back and do more a more traditional adaptation of it, with the darker kind of characters and a more mature story.
Because
We
now
were
the
talking
fans
about
are more mature.
fans are
Right.
ages
We don't have
so-
to apologize or cover for that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So what was
Yeah.
that like coming back to be Yugi again?
Yeah, like seeing an old friend, And I really enjoyed being able to have Yugi have matured a bit,
That's right.
His innocence is really wonderful in the original series, but yeah, I think we're ready to see now.
More worldly.
Yeah, let's see him grow up. He's not going to grow up to become the Pharaoh,
No.
right? Just like Nightwing's not going to grow up to become Batman, right? So that it was a pleasure, and I'm working with people that I've known for years, really admire and really care about. So that's fun, and that again, it's just a huge gift to be a part of something that is meaningful to people in any way.
That's right.
Yeah, and I don't take any personal responsibility for that. I just feel like I'm a part of something.
Yeah.
Right. It's not special because of me.
It's not
Yeah.
not about you.
No.
You did the best thing you could do for the character.
And hopefully I didn't screw up.
So I was also talking to Eric yesterday that both of you guys were involved in Pokemon, Yu-Gi-Oh, things that we've kind of discussed as kind of like gateway series to kind of, at the time, a lot of people watched those and they didn't realize they were anime.
Right.
And that the stuff that's coming out these days and the mass culture is a lot to do with how popular your Dragon Ball Zs, your Pokemon, your Yu-Gi-Ohs were. So what's it kind of like being involved in what's such a big phenomena now, like or being involved in those series that open the gateways to the phenomenon?
I've never thought of it that way, but I guess it feels like a privilege, One of the things that continues to really be relevant to me is the experience of meeting fans of the show, and some fans are just super excited and they'll say great things like thanks for making my childhood amazing or something along those lines, that's all. It has to be wonderful to hear under any situation. And very often there are fans who will share things like, I was going through a really hard time in my life, and there was Yu-Gi-Oh, and it helped me get through this or that or what have you. And of course that's not something that you're foreseeing when you're recording, but I understand what it's like to go through hard times. I suffered from depression when I was in my adolescence, and I was even institutionalized for it. And for me, the entertainments and the go-tos that provided me comfort, that provided me hope, were things like Star Wars and the music of Peter Gabriel and stuff like that. We all have those things that become companions in our hardest times, and again, I don't take any personal responsibility for it. I just feel privileged that I was helpful that something that I did was useful and helpful to somebody in some way.
So you're obviously very known for the Yugi character. Are
Yeah.
you okay if there was no more Yu-Gi-Oh, if there was no other movie at the moment? Are you okay? Is it closure for you where the characters ended up? And
For sure. Yeah. I mean, it's interesting. We were just talking to a young man who was, speculating about what if they came back or how could they come back, and some fans are much more attached to the original series, and but for me, it's all just been a gift. So I have no expectations of it really should be more, and what you should have done with these characters is this or that. I mean,
But if there was more, it'd just be a bonus for you.
exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. And I'm also very grateful that they aren't just churning out stuff,
No.
you know, and it's
Milking it.
meaningless. Yeah.
Well, that's another thing as well. Like, quite a few of the anime of that era, they were kind of 30-minute cartoon ads for the product they were trying to push. And I think why Yu-Gi-Oh is still such a special thing is it had a story,
Right.
like you said, a complex beginning, middle, and end.
Right.
It could stand on its own. Like, obviously, it encouraged a lot of people to get into the card game.
Sure.
But do you think that the actual story and the characters and everything set up is what has driven the passion of fan base?
Yeah, I mean, I know for a fact that I don't know, but my guess is that it is those human relationships that anybody understands that helps somebody attach to what they're seeing, right? If Yu-Gi-Oh were merely an excited recitation of card rules, it would only go so far, right? But you have the themes of friendship, and you have like the father-son relationship, or the avuncular relationship, or whatever you want to call it, between Yugi and Atem. You know, everybody understands that, even if they haven't had it in their life, they wanted it, you know.
Yes.
Or maybe it's a reflection of something that they did have, you know, and maybe no longer have, right? I've definitely had fans relate through Yu-Gi-Oh to their experience of their father figures, and you know, I don't think it. For me personally, I'm not interested in stories that I can't connect to. So they need to have a human element.
Yeah, of course. So, unlike a lot of voice actors in the business, you've actually got
Pardon me.
something special where you, a lot of time the voice actor, you're kind of like the end product. It's gone through localizations, been written, you're kind of the voice, and then it goes out. You've now come full circle, and something we saw at the panel on Friday is Crossing the G.O.D.S.
Yeah.
So you've gone from being the end to the creating side. So
Right.
what's that like? And can you explain the Crossing the G.O.D.S project?
Yeah, for sure. I like the way you just phrased that. I'm going to steal that.
Yeah, sure. No, it's kind of going full circle on the creative side of things.
Right. Well, what fans of Dan Green probably don't know is that I was thinking of story ideas since I was in my teens, and again, that was another thing that helped me get through the stuff that I had to get through. You know, I'm sure so many people who might be listening to this interview have story ideas of their own, or a world of fantasy that they go to help them, you know, deal with stuff. And so, Crossing the G.O.D.S is one of several ideas that I had come up with before I even got to Yu-Gi-Oh as a performer. And I knew when I was in college studying to be an actor that acting was the thing that I was maybe most suited at, naturally talented at, or whatever, but that I never wanted to be just an actor, right? So not that there's anything wrong with that, right? So for me, I feel like with Crossing the G.O.D.S, I'm finally paying attention to those parts of myself that are like, hey, okay with the acting stuff already, but what about us? You know, it's time to get those things in gear. And when you have those things inside of you, I think you should listen to those voices. And if you don't, this is true for me anyway. There's a part of me that has this feeling like I'm letting myself down. You know, it's like, come on, this is relevant to you. You said you're going to give this a shot. And now I'm just so fortunate that because there are some people that care about what Dan Green does, that maybe some people will listen to a story I have to tell. And a couple years ago, Eric and I were doing an appearance in England, and I don't do very many appearances. And we were there, and he, on a break, he said, we should do something of our own. And and I kind of had this catalog of stories, and I'm like, well, let's see, But another thing that he said was like, we should, really take advantage of the fact that we know all these talented actors, and so how do we kind of bring the band back together? And I was like, well, and it just happened that Crossing the G.O.D.S was a concept that was more of an ensemble piece, and that seemed to be a better fit for what Eric was talking about all this wonderful cast that we could bring into place. So that's kind of the sequence of how that happened. And also another thing is, as a kid, the first thing that I did that I was recognized for, being a little bit better than average, was drawing. My mom was very talented at drawing and visual arts, and she taught me, and then I went on further for there. So Crossing the G.O.D.S is a great opportunity for me to write and draw and direct actors. I've done a lot of directing as well, and I'm also I'm not writing the music, but I'm helping to direct where the music should be. Tell me, right. This is how the music should sound. I'll give you a sample track, and then I'll give them feedback, and So and even the sound design. I'm doing the sound design for the first episode, probably the rest of the episodes. And it's not like I'm a control freak. It's just that I happen to be the one who's willing to do those things at this point. And I certainly will need help doing those things if we want to see the show in the next 50 years.
Well, that kind of leads into my next question.
Oh, yeah.
You said it's kind of concepted as an idea a couple of years back, but you got to draw the pieces. Obviously, there's a lot of parts involved. There's the voicing, the mixing.
Yeah, for sure.
Roughly how long does it take per an episode?
Yeah, well,
I don't think you mentioned they're about 3 to 5 minutes or so.
Oh, yeah, they're 5 to 7 minutes or so. But I think 3 minutes would be a little too brief. But keep in mind that in that roughly 2-year period, that went from a conversation to writing a script, and it's written as a series, not a movie, right? Movies are a very different structure. But if you put the 26 episodes that we have together, the running time would probably be a little over 2 hours, right? But if you go online and you say, how long does it take to write a movie script? They'll tell you it takes at least 6 months, usually. I mean, it's not that people can't do it faster. You drafts and you rewrite, right. So there's, let's say, appropriately 6 months to develop the writing. There's the recording process, right? And also, with the visual approach that we're using, it's not straight up animation, and so we had to develop a unique visual style that told the story clearly and in something that we were, excited about. So it's really, a process of trial and error and discovery. Initially, the visuals were going to be much more simple. Like just, not even bothering with backgrounds, just, maybe having some sort of graphic abstract brush stroke, but we'd have even a rough sketch of the character just so you know who's talking or, that sort of thing. Much more simplistic.
More of a storyboard than an animatic.
Yeah, way more like a storyboard, exactly. And sort of like, you know what I mean by a Ken Burns effect, like we're just like panning over an image and not but as you saw, it's not as simplistic as that. There's camera moves. There's all where I'm creating a 3D set in which it's kind of like a pop-up book. We're using two-dimensional imagery, but the camera moves around it, so you get parallax views. When something in the foreground moves faster than the background, which really provides a sense of motion that's not really there, and but also depth. And it's the characters are written three-dimensionally, right? And I think the artwork should reflect that. The visual style is not cartoony; it's more realistically oriented, right? And the shading on the characters, and right when somebody gets angry, they don't have an icon blinking over their head. Again, nothing wrong with that, but that's just not the sensibility of this.
That's right. Yeah. And it's pitched to be a bit more of a mature series.
Absolutely.
You're mentioning.
I
mentioned to Eric, it reminded me when I saw it of a bit more of a grounded X-Men story.
Yeah, very similar. Or like the Marvel series on Netflix, right? Without the vulgarity.
Yes.
But and those stories are written obviously for adults. And what matters in those stories are human level things. I have had 7-year-olds and my kids are 7-year-olds and they've watched the first episode and they're into it, right? But that's not necessarily the thrust, right?
So obviously the people that were here at the panel were lucky enough to see it. Do you have any kind of schedule on when you may put Crossing the G.O.D.S out into the public for a little bit of initial feedback?
Yeah. So that's the next step, and this has been as much of sort of what's the word we're getting a lot of information from the fans' reaction in terms of what are they responding to, and the second episode was almost complete for me to share here as well, but I literally had that movie come up and a couple audio books and an animated series. It was like, wait a minute though, I got to finish the second episode for Australia, because I planned like I only need a month of time to get this work done, and then other things ate up some of that time. But anyway, but we want to get 3 episodes done. And get some feedback from people within the industry. We also definitely want to get feedback from fans, any audience that would like it. And not only anime fans might be interested in it, And it's not anime. No. This style is not anime. But that's sort of the idea. And currently, maybe in 6 months or so, we could have 3 episodes up on Facebook or our website. And people could at least get a sense of what the series flavor is, what the idea is, and hopefully we can find a way to get enough funding so that I am not the only artist working on getting the images done. I mean, I would still art direct. It would still look very much like the first 3 episodes, right?
Well, if you penned it for a 26-episode thing, so it could take a long time.
Heck, yeah. I mean, I can't imagine creating an episode even with support artists and that. The music we're creating is original music. Yeah. We're not just doing rights-free stuff. It's being scored to what's going on. So that composer needs a month, for that. So if we could do an episode a month, I think that's probably the fastest we could go. But everything's been recorded. The cast sounds great. They did a wonderful job. As from the writing part of it, you have a scene in your mind and you create the dialogue. And there were many moments with each actor where they were hitting the line in just the way that I was imagining it without me directing them there. Yeah, it was like chills.
That's when you know you've got a good group of
people. Yes, definitely a good group of people, yes, for sure. And also all these actors that are familiar to this fan base are doing things that this fan base has never heard them do before. Eric's not doing anything similar with Blacksmith that you've seen him do before.
When I heard him in it surprised me.
Yeah.
The bit of the accent, it kind of sounded like Australian, British.
Yeah, it's modeled after the accent that you might associate with Billy Idol.
Yeah.
With me doing Cross, I'm in a very familiar territory, but it's not exactly anything that you've heard before. Veronica Taylor's doing something like no fan is, I won't say she's never done before, but and so on and so forth. So I'm really excited to be able to share those wonderful performances as fast as I can.
So before we wrap up, where can fans follow your work online, or what do you have in the works at the moment that they can look forward to in the near future and things like that you can talk about, and where can they follow you and follow Crossing the G.O.D.S?
Well, some things to look forward to. I'll be doing some role in the series Emma, and I also recently recorded something that I think fans will enjoy that I can't discuss with specificity. I regularly do audiobooks, and you can find those at audible.com. And what else? And in terms of like Dan Green, where to follow Dan Green, I am so bad at self-promoting. I don't have a website. I don't promote myself. And it's not because I feel like I'm above that. It just doesn't enter my mind to promote myself in that way. But for the Crossing the G.O.D.S, you can find us on Facebook. We also have a website. But Facebook is probably the best place to track whatever's going on with that.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thanks so much for your time.
Well, thank you for asking all these questions.
No worries. Thank you.
That was a great interview. Thank you.
Thanks for tuning in to this episode of Talent Talk. Look forward to next week's episode where I'll be sitting down and talking to another voice actor from the anime industry and picking their brain. If you liked this episode, please consider subscribing on YouTube or on your podcasting platform of choice so you never miss an episode. And feel free to communicate with me on Twitter at anigame_au. That's ANIGAME_AU. And let me know who you'd love to see on the show. This has been Joel from Anigame, and I'll catch you in the next episode.